During our vacation, my fiancée pulled me aside at dinner and said loud enough for strangers to hear, "Don't embarrass yourself trying to order. You don't even know what this food is." The waiter looked at me with pity. I just nodded. 3 weeks later, she learned how expensive that vacation really was. The moment our engagement ended, I was looking at a menu, written in a language I couldn't read. In a restaurant so quiet, you could hear the silk of the waitress's kimono rustling as she walked. We were in Kyoto, Japan, on the third night of a 2-week vacation that was supposed to be the prelude to our wedding. The dinner was a multi-course kaiseki experience, a kind of culinary art form. It was the kind of thing my fiancée Nancy lived for. The waitress presented the menu. Nancy, without even glancing at me, immediately took charge, speaking to the waitress in the condescendingly slow and loud English people use when they assume no one understands them. When the waitress politely asked for my order, Nancy physically put a hand on my arm, stopping me from speaking. She pulled me a few inches closer and said, just loud enough for the couple at the next table and the waitress to hear clearly, "Babe, don't embarrass yourself trying to order. You don't even know what this food is. I'll handle it." The waitress's professional smile faltered for just a second. She looked at me with an expression of pure, unadulterated pity. The man at the next table quickly looked down at his plate. Nancy just smiled, basking in what she perceived as her worldly sophistication. She had just publicly cast me as the uncultured fool and herself as the cosmopolitan guide, saving me from my own ignorance. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just gave a small, slow nod. I looked at the waitress and said, "Whatever my fiancé recommends will be fine, thank you." My mind, however, was already thousands of miles away, back in my office. In that single, public act of humiliation, a complex project had just been red-flagged for immediate and catastrophic failure. The partnership was dissolved. All that was left was the asset liquidation. Nancy had no idea, but she had just made this the most expensive vacation of her entire life. Let's get one thing straight. I am not a doormat. I am not a simp. I am an import-export consultant. My entire world revolves around logistics, customs law, and the complex, often brutal, world of international trade. I move high-value goods across borders. I understand supply chains, tariff codes, and the precise, unforgiving language of a bill of lading. My job is to see every angle, anticipate every problem, and ensure that every asset reaches its destination with maximum efficiency and minimum liability. I don't deal with emotions. I deal with ledgers. I met Nancy a year ago. She was working as a gallery assistant, surrounded by a world of art and luxury she desperately wanted but couldn't afford. She was beautiful, ambitious, and possessed a social grace I admittedly lacked. I saw her as an underperforming asset with potential. I come from a straightforward, working-class background. While I've become successful, I've never been comfortable in the world of high society she navigated so effortlessly. I made a calculated investment. I proposed a partnership. I would provide the financial backing to elevate her lifestyle, and she would provide the social expertise, acting as my partner in a world I wanted to better understand for professional reasons. It was a probationary arrangement. I wasn't paying her bills indefinitely. I was funding a 1-year joint venture to see if it would yield a worthwhile return. This trip to Japan was the final assessment before the potential merger of our lives. For a year I logged the data, the constant, subtle digs about my simple tastes. The way she and her best friend, a deeply unpleasant woman named Jenna, would exchange smirking glances when I didn't recognize a designer's name. Her growing sense of entitlement to my money. I saw it all not as red flags, but as operational costs. The question was whether the asset's potential would eventually outweigh these costs. Her comment in that restaurant was the final entry in the ledger. It was a public declaration of contempt. It proved she saw me not as a partner, but as a stepping stone. A crude but necessary tool to get what she wanted. The venture was a failure. My job now was to manage the fallout and ensure the liability fell exactly where it belonged, on her. As the exquisite, 20-course meal began to arrive, I didn't taste a single bite. I was already drafting a new logistics plan in my head. A plan to import a single, high-maintenance liability back to the United States and present her with the bill. Update 1. The 5 days following that dinner were a masterclass in strategic procurement. Nancy interpreted my quiet compliance as submission. She thought she had won, that she had successfully established her dominance in the relationship. She became even more brazen in her spending and more condescending in her attitude. This was exactly what I needed. "I'm going shopping tomorrow in Ginza," she announced the next morning. "You should probably just stay at the hotel. You'd be bored." "That's a good idea," I said. "I have some work to catch up on." The moment she left, I initiated the first phase of my plan: asset acquisition and liability assignment. My work wasn't a lie. I spent the entire day on my laptop and phone, not dealing with my usual clients, but creating a new one, a shell corporation registered in Delaware called Aperture Global Imports. I built a simple but professional-looking website for it. I arranged for a phone number with a virtual receptionist. To any cursory glance, it was a legitimate boutique import-export business. Then I went shopping. I went to the same high-end district she was in. But I went to different stores. I bought a vintage Rolex, a set of handcrafted Japanese knives, a rare single malt whiskey. These weren't gifts, these were product samples for my new company, Aperture Global. I kept every receipt, every certificate of authenticity, and documented them as business expenses. When Nancy returned to the hotel, laden with bags, I presented her with my own purchases. I gave her the Rolex. "An early wedding present," I said. She was ecstatic. The price tag, which I had accidentally left on, made her eyes go wide. The next day, she wanted to visit an art gallery. There, she fell in love with a series of modern woodblock prints. They were beautiful, and they were expensive. "We have to have these for the new house," she declared, already spending money on a future that no longer existed. "Of course," I said. I purchased the prints. But when the gallery prepared the paperwork, I had them list the buyer as Aperture Global Imports. I explained to the gallery owner that I was an importer and these were for a client. I handled all the export paperwork myself, ensuring everything was meticulously and, more importantly, commercially documented. Nancy was too busy taking selfies with the art to notice. This continued for 4 more days. A designer handbag here, a custom-made silk kimono there. Each purchase was a carefully laid trap. She thought I was showering her with gifts, placating her after her display of dominance. I was doing something else entirely. I was loading her up with high-value commercial goods that she believed were her personal property. I kept a running tally. The total value of the gifts I had given her came to just over $92,000. The night before we were scheduled to fly home, I put the final pieces in place. I logged into my airline account. I upgraded my own seat to first class on a different flight that left 12 hours earlier than ours. I cited a sudden, unavoidable business meeting in New York. "You'll have to handle the luggage yourself, I'm afraid," I told her, with a look of deep regret. "But it's just a few bags. You'll be fine. I'll see you at home tomorrow." She was annoyed at having to travel alone, but the mountain of luxury goods she was bringing home was a significant consolation. She had no idea the logistical nightmare that awaited her. My final act before leaving for the airport was to log into my credit card account. Nancy was an authorized user on my primary card, the one with no spending limit. I reported her card as lost and had it immediately deactivated. I then composed an email. It was a detailed tip to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency. The email was a work of art. It was from a concerned business associate. It stated that a passenger named Nancy arriving on flight JL06 from Tokyo, was a mule for an art smuggling ring. It claimed she was attempting to import undeclared, high-value commercial goods disguised as personal gifts to evade customs duties. It provided her flight number, her seat number, and a detailed list of the items she would be carrying, complete with their exact monetary values. It suggested that a thorough, Level 3 inspection of all her luggage would be prudent. I sent the email from a secure, untraceable address. Then I went to the airport, boarded my flight, and flew home. I turned my phone off. The trap was set. The shipment was en route, and the recipient was about to be presented with an invoice she could never hope to pay. Update 2. I landed in New York, went to my apartment, and slept for 8 solid hours. The silence from Nancy was expected. She wouldn't realize her predicament until she landed. I spent my day at home, tracking her flight online. It landed at JFK at 11:47 a.m. Eastern Time. That's when the show would have started. I have a contact who works in freight forwarding at JFK. He can't give me specific details about customs inspections, but he can give me general information about processing times for certain flights. A few hours after her flight landed, I sent him a casual text asking if there were any unusual delays with the baggage from JL006. His reply came an hour later. Yeah, big one. CBP pulled a bunch of passengers for secondary. Heard they nailed some lady trying to bring in a ton of undeclared luxury stuff. Rumor is she's still in there. Total mess. I smiled. The system worked. The first frantic voicemail from Nancy came through at 6:30 p.m., a full 6 hours after her flight had landed. Her voice was a cracked, terrified whisper. Where are you? I'm in some room at the airport. They took everything. They're saying I have to pay taxes, thousands of dollars. My card was declined. Call me. Please, call me. The second voicemail came an hour later. She was sobbing uncontrollably. They think I'm a smuggler. They're talking about fines and penalties. Jenna is on her way to try and help. Why isn't my card working? I have no money. They won't let me leave with my things. I listened to the messages, then deleted them. This was her campaign of humiliation. This was my counter-offensive. I pieced together the rest of the story later from a mutual acquaintance who got the full, hysterical version from Jenna. When Nancy arrived at customs, she was flagged immediately, just as I had planned. She was escorted to a secondary inspection room. They unpacked every single one of her bags. They found the Rolex, the art, the kimono, the handbag. Everything. The customs officer had a printout. It was a list of her gifts. Next to each item was its declared commercial value, based on the export documents I had so meticulously filed in Japan. The $92,000 worth of art and luxury goods. The officer explained that these were not personal effects. They were commercial imports, and as the importer of record, she was liable for the customs duties, tariffs, and taxes. He then presented her with the preliminary bill, $31,274, payable immediately. Nancy, of course, laughed. She told them it was a mistake. These were gifts from her rich fiancé. She pulled out the credit card I had so thoughtfully provided. It was declined. She tried again. Declined. The panic began to set in. She tried to call me. My phone was off. Jenna arrived a few hours later, a useless cavalry charge. She apparently tried to argue with the customs officers, which went about as well as you'd expect. They were not impressed. Nancy was presented with a choice. She could pay the $31,000 and take her goods, or she could sign a form surrendering the goods to the U.S. government. If she chose the latter, she would also be placed on a watch list and would face a lifetime of enhanced security screenings every time she traveled internationally. And she might still be liable for civil penalties for making a false declaration. She had no money. She had no choice. She signed the form. She walked out of JFK Airport with nothing but her personal clothing and a handbag full of receipts for things she no longer owned. Everything I had given her was gone. The Rolex, the art, the designer clothes she had bought for herself. All of it was now the property of the U.S. Treasury, destined for a government auction. She had arrived in Japan feeling like a queen. She left America feeling like a criminal. The cost of her public humiliation of me was $31,000 in taxes she couldn't pay and $92,000 in assets she would never see again. The vacation had, indeed, become very expensive. Final update. It has been 3 weeks since the disaster at JFK. The first week was a barrage of increasingly unhinged voicemails and texts from Nancy and Jenna from burner numbers. I ignored them all. I was busy restructuring my life, purging every trace of my failed joint venture. The second week, her parents got involved. Her father, a man who had always treated me with a kind of weary tolerance, left me a stern voicemail demanding I fix the mess I had created. He seemed to believe I had a magic button that could make federal tax liabilities disappear. I responded with a single formal email to him. I attached a detailed, itemized PDF. It was a ledger. On one side, it listed every single dollar I had spent on Nancy's lifestyle over the past year. Her rent, her car payment, both of which I had been covering, the dinners, the trips, the shopping. On the other side, it listed her contributions to our partnership. 0. At the bottom of the ledger, I included a final entry. Estimated cost of public humiliation and breach of partnership contract, $123,274. Value of goods surrendered at JFK, plus preliminary duties. My email was brief. Attached is the final ledger for the now dissolved joint venture between myself and your daughter. As you can see, the partnership was significantly over-leveraged on my side. The incident at customs was an unfortunate but direct consequence of Nancy's decision to publicly redefine our relationship. She chose to treat me as a simple financial instrument. I, in turn, chose to liquidate my investment. The resulting liabilities are hers to manage. I consider this matter closed. He didn't call back. The final confrontation came yesterday. Nancy showed up at my apartment building. She looked diminished. The polished, confident woman I had met a year ago was gone. In her place was someone who looked tired and beaten. I met her in the lobby. I didn't let her up. She started crying immediately. She was sorry. She had been a fool. She had been insecure and had tried to impress her friends. The usual script. "I have nothing," she said, her voice choked with tears. "My parents are making me move back home. I had to get a normal job. Jenna won't even talk to me. She blames me for everything." "I see," I said, my voice betraying no emotion. "Can't you just help?" she pleaded. "Just a little, to get me back on my feet, after everything we had?" I looked at her for a long moment. "What we had, Nancy," I said, my voice as cold and hard as a shipping container, "was a business arrangement. You provided a certain social value, and I provided a certain financial value. But you publicly declared that my value was only financial, and that it was contemptible. You tried to position me as a fool in front of strangers. You fundamentally misunderstood the nature of our agreement." I pulled out my phone and showed her a picture. It was a screenshot from a government auction website. The modern woodblock prints from the gallery in Kyoto were up for sale. "I bought your art back, by the way," I said casually. "Aperture Global got it for 10 cents on the dollar. It was a very good deal." This is what I do, Nancy. I find undervalued assets that have been mismanaged. You mismanaged our partnership. You mismanaged your own brand, and now you've been liquidated. I put my phone away. "The most expensive thing in the world isn't a Rolex or a designer handbag," I said. "It's a bad deal, and you were a very, very bad deal. Goodbye, Nancy." I turned and walked back to the elevator, leaving her standing alone in the lobby. Her vacation was over. Her lifestyle was over. The ledger was finally perfectly balanced. Last night was my 3-year anniversary with my girlfriend Megan. For my gift, she handed me a glossy brochure for a high-end gym and a prepackaged salad from the grocery store. I just looked at the stuff, confused. She didn't crack a smile. "Honestly," she said, her voice flat, "it's embarrassing being seen with you anymore. Fix it." The words just hung there in the air between us. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I looked at the gym membership, then at her and just said, "Thank you." Let me be clear, I'm not a huge guy, but I'll admit I'd let myself go. I'd gained about 30 pounds since Megan and I got together. Life gets busy, you get comfortable. I never thought it was a big deal. Megan never said a word about it, not once. Or so I thought. Looking back now, her little comments make more sense. "Are you really going to eat all that?" when I'd grab a second slice of pizza. The way she'd suggest I wear a jacket on a warm day. I thought she was just being caring or quirky. Turns out she was just ashamed of me. Her gift, if you can call it that, wasn't a suggestion. It was a command. And it wasn't just the gym membership. She had already signed me up for 3 sessions a week with a personal trainer. "Her name is Ariana," Megan said, tapping a perfectly manicured nail on the brochure. "My friend Amber uses her. She's supposed to be really good. Don't waste my money." It wasn't her money. I paid for everything in our relationship. The apartment is in my name, the bills are in my name. Megan contributes when she feels like it, which isn't often. I've never made a big deal about it. I make good money, and I thought we were building a life together. I see now that I was just building her life, and I was becoming an inconvenient, out-of-shape accessory. So I said thank you. Not because I was grateful, and not because I was a doormat accepting her abuse. I said it because in that moment, I understood with perfect clarity that our relationship was over. She didn't see a partner she loved. She saw a project she was disgusted with. Fine. Project accepted. But I wouldn't be doing it for her. I'd be doing it for me. The next morning, I ate that sad little salad for breakfast and went to the gym. My first session with Ariana was brutal. I was weak, my stamina was non-existent, and I felt like an idiot fumbling with the equipment. Ariana was tough but fair. She didn't baby me, but she wasn't judgmental either. She just had this calm, professional focus. She asked me what my goals were. I was honest. My girlfriend says it's embarrassing to be seen with me, I told her. So I guess my goal is to not be embarrassing. A flicker of something crossed her face. Surprise, maybe sympathy, but it was gone in a second. Okay, she said. We can work with that, but you have to do this for you, not for her. Your motivation has to come from inside or you won't last. She was right, of course. I came home that first day so sore I could barely walk up the stairs to my apartment. Megan was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. How was it? She asked, not looking up. Did you cry? I just told her it was fine and hobbled into the shower. While the hot water was running, I could hear her on the phone with her friend Amber, laughing. He actually went, she was saying. He looked like a wounded old man when he came in. This is going to be hilarious. That became the routine. I'd go to the gym before work, 3 days a week with Ariana and 2 more days on my own. I started eating clean, following the nutrition plan Ariana helped me put together. Megan treated the whole thing like a joke. She'd order takeout pizza for herself and eat it in front of me while I picked at my grilled chicken and vegetables. She'd ask to see my non-existent abs, then laugh and pat my stomach. Keep trying, big guy, she'd say. Her friends thought it was a riot. They'd come over and she'd make me show them my muscles, and they'd all have a good laugh at my expense. I never gave them a reaction. I just kept going. The first month was hell. I was constantly sore, constantly hungry, and constantly dealing with Megan's casual cruelty. But then something started to change. I dropped 10 pounds. I could lift a little heavier, run a little longer. I started to feel better. The fog I didn't even know I was in started to lift. I had more energy. I was sleeping better, and I was starting to look forward to my sessions with Ariana. Our conversations started to go beyond sets and reps. We talked about movies, about travel, about our lives. I learned that she was putting herself through school at night to become a physical therapist. She was driven and kind and had a sense of humor that wasn't at anyone's expense. She was everything Megan wasn't. Meanwhile, things at home were getting colder. Now that I wasn't eating takeout with Megan or sitting on the couch watching movies with a bowl of ice cream, we were spending less and less time together. My new lifestyle was an inconvenience to her. My getting up early for the gym woke her up. My healthy food was taking up too much space in the fridge. She complained constantly. One night, she told me she was going out with her friends. Don't wait up, she said. We're going to a place where I don't have to be embarrassed by my date. I just nodded and kept reading my book. The old me would have been hurt, would have tried to argue. The new me just felt a quiet sense of relief. While she was out, I did something I should have done a long time ago. I logged into our shared phone plan account, the one that was in my name and that I paid for every month. I removed her line from my account. I then logged into the streaming services, all of which I paid for, and changed the passwords. Small things, but they felt like a start. The next morning, she woke up in a rage. My phone isn't working, she yelled from the bedroom, and Netflix is asking for a password. I walked to the doorway, holding my gym bag. Your phone plan was disconnected, I said calmly. You'll have to get your own. And I changed the passwords on the streaming accounts. Since you're so embarrassed to be seen with me, I figured we could start separating our lives a bit. The look on her face was a mixture of shock and fury. She was so used to me just absorbing her insults and paying for her lifestyle that the idea of me setting a boundary was completely foreign to her. She started screaming, calling me petty and controlling. She said I was trying to punish her for being honest about my appearance. You should be thanking me, she shrieked. I'm the one who's making you better. I didn't argue. I just turned around and went to the gym. My progress started to accelerate after that. By the end of the 3rd month, I had lost all 30 pounds and I was starting to build muscle. I was a different person, physically and mentally. The constant exhaustion was gone, replaced by a steady confidence I hadn't felt in years. My relationship with Ariana had deepened too. We were friends now, genuinely. We'd grab coffee after a session or text about a funny thing we saw. There was a spark there, an easy chemistry that was the complete opposite of the strained, toxic dynamic I had with Megan. Megan, for her part, seemed to have forgotten about her project. She was either ignoring me or complaining about me. She never once acknowledged the changes in my body. It was like she refused to see them, because that would mean her little joke wasn't funny anymore. It would mean I had succeeded without her and in spite of her. Her friends were the same. They stopped asking to see my muscles because there were actual muscles to see now, and that ruined the fun. The breaking point came about 4 months in. I came home from work, and Megan was in the living room with a man I'd never seen before. He was sitting on my couch, drinking a beer from my fridge. Megan introduced him as a friend from work. The way they were sitting, the way he looked at me, I knew what was happening. I didn't make a scene. I just went into the bedroom and started packing a bag. Megan followed me, demanding to know what I was doing. "I'm going to stay at a hotel for a few days," I said, my voice level. "I think you should use that time to find a new place to live." She actually laughed. "You're kicking me out? After all I've done for you? I made you who you are." I stopped packing and looked at her. "No, you didn't," I said. "You tried to shame me. You mocked me. You treated me like dirt. The only thing you did was show me that I deserved better. So thank you for that. Now get out of my apartment." Her laughter turned into rage. She threatened, she pleaded, she cried. She said she was sorry, that the guy in the living room meant nothing, that she had been stressed. I just kept packing. When I was done, I walked to the door. "I'll be back on Friday," I said. "I expect you and your things to be gone." Then I left. I spent the next few days in a hotel, but I wasn't hiding. I was planning. I called a lawyer to understand my rights regarding the apartment. He confirmed what I already knew. Since she wasn't on the lease or mortgage, she had no legal claim. He advised me to change the locks as soon as she was out. I also called my brother and asked if he could come over on Friday to help, just in case things got ugly. During that week, I saw Ariana. I told her everything that had happened. We went for a long walk in the park, and for the first time, we talked not as trainer and client, but as two people who were clearly interested in each other. I told her I was getting out of a bad relationship and that I needed to be on my own for a while to figure things out. She understood. She just smiled and said, "I'll be here when you're ready." On Friday, I went back to the apartment with my brother. Megan's car was gone, which was a good sign. We walked in and the place was a mess. She had taken her things, but she had also done some damage out of spite. There were scratches on the hardwood floors and a smear of what looked like lipstick on the living room wall. And she had left a pile of my gym clothes in the middle of the floor, cut to shreds with a pair of scissors. My brother just shook his head. We spent the day cleaning up the mess and changing the locks. That evening, for the first time in a long time, my apartment felt like my home again. It was quiet and peaceful. The weeks that followed were the best I'd had in years. I was free. I focused on my work, my fitness, and my friendships, and I started seeing Ariana. Our first date was simple, just dinner at a quiet Italian place. It was easy. We talked for hours. She made me laugh. She listened. She respected me. It was a revelation. We started spending all of our free time together, hiking, going to concerts, cooking dinner at my place. It was a healthy, happy adult relationship. About 2 months after the breakup, Ariana and I were at the gym, and she was taking some new photos for her professional website. She had asked if she could use my transformation as a testimonial. I agreed. We took a before picture from my phone, one Megan had taken of me on vacation a year ago, where I looked miserable and out of shape. Then we took an after picture, right there in the gym. The difference was stunning. It wasn't just the weight loss or the muscle. It was the look in my eyes. In the first picture, I looked defeated. In the second, I looked alive. That night, Ariana posted the pictures on her Instagram. It was a professional post aimed at attracting new clients. She wrote a long caption about the power of dedication and hard work. She praised my commitment and my positive attitude, and then she ended it with a line that she had asked me about beforehand. "I'm so proud of my amazing client and even prouder to call him my boyfriend." Congratulations on all your hard work, Alex. I didn't think much of it at the time. My social media is pretty private, and I don't have many mutual connections with Megan. I was wrong. Apparently, Amber, Megan's friend who had recommended Ariana in the first place, still followed Ariana's professional account. Amber saw the post and immediately sent it to Megan. The explosion was nuclear. My phone started blowing up about an hour after the post went live. First, it was Megan. Voicemails, dozens of them, each one more unhinged than the last. She was screaming, sobbing. She accused me of cheating on her with Ariana the entire time. She called Ariana horrible names. She said I had used her money, the money she paid for the initial training sessions, to seduce another woman. Then the texts started. They were from Megan, from Amber, from numbers I didn't recognize. "You're a disgusting pig," one of them read. "You were sleeping with my trainer behind my back," Megan wrote. "I'm going to ruin her business and I'm going to sue you." Her smear campaign was as pathetic as it was predictable. She and Amber started leaving fake one-star reviews on Ariana's business page, claiming she was unprofessional and had inappropriate relationships with clients. They tried to get her in trouble with the gym. It didn't work. Ariana had a stellar reputation, and the gym management knew her well. They saw the reviews for what they were, a jealous ex's tantrum, and deleted them. Ariana's real clients rallied around her, leaving a flood of positive reviews that buried the fake ones. Megan's attempt to ruin her backfired spectacularly. Then she came after me. She sent a rambling, incoherent email to my boss, accusing me of harassment and of stealing from her. It was so full of lies and grammatical errors that my boss just forwarded it to me with a note that said, "Looks like you have a crazy ex. Let me know if you need anything." She had no power, no leverage. All she had was her own rage, and it was consuming her. The final, pathetic act came a week later. She showed up at my apartment, pounding on the door, demanding to be let in. I called the police. When they arrived, she was still on my doorstep, screaming that I had stolen her life from her. The officers listened patiently, then informed her that if she didn't leave the property, she would be arrested for trespassing. The sight of her, red-faced and defeated, being escorted away by the police, wasn't satisfying. It was just sad. I haven't heard from her since. I heard through the grapevine that she had to move out of the city. She couldn't afford it on her own, and she had alienated most of her friends with her obsessive, destructive behavior. Amber eventually cut her off, tired of the constant drama. Last night, Ariana and I were cooking dinner in my kitchen, my quiet, peaceful kitchen. We were laughing about something stupid when she wrapped her arms around me from behind. "I'm proud of you," she said. And I knew she wasn't just talking about the gym. She was proud of the man I had become, the man who stood up for himself, the man who refused to be someone's embarrassing project. The anniversary gift Megan gave me was meant to be an insult. But in the end, it was the best gift I ever received. It led me here, to this moment, with a woman who sees me for who I am. And that's a transformation that has nothing to do with before and after pictures. I pulled her closer and kissed her. I was finally home.